once, and then how we're learned from that to do it better now.
Yep.
So, but that's how people learn. As soon as it gets here, but the live is loading.
Okay.
Redirecting to the Facebook page. And again, no expectations. It's just we like it loosey goosey intentionally, because it's like a practice to let go of being polished.
Mm-hmm.
And because we're live right now, so it's all good. How's everybody doing tonight? So on tonight's episode of Do Weird Shit, we're waiting for Dustin to jump in here in a moment, and my good friend Kat has decided to jump on with us tonight. Let me see if I can move this window so I can look at the messages as well. Oops, that's the wrong way. From the Facebook Live. And then you want to be able to see comments. We have 2 viewers right now. Give us just a second, everybody. There's actually like a little bit of a delay too. So Facebook's like 20 seconds in the past. So that's kind of cool. And then how do I do this? Let's click on it like that. Oh, there we go. I just talked about 20 seconds past. All right. So yeah, how you doing? What do you want to get into today? How's your week been?
What's today? What's Monday?
Yeah.
The days start escaping me. I have a hard time tracking the days. Busy day today. Yeah, lots of business stuff, fun business stuff, and then a little bit of drama with our trailer. So
where are you guys at right
now? We're in Paula, California, which
California.
it's like 20 minutes south of Temecula.
Okay.
And yeah. Hey everybody, I'm Kat. And thanks Ryan for having me. So yeah, we're traveling full time in our fifth wheel, my wife and I. And the other night the heater decided not to work, and it's getting a little bit cooler. I mean, we're still in Southern California, which is still amazing, but you know, it's getting a little cooler. It's dropping down to like the 40s at night, and when you don't have a heater, that's not fun to wake up to in a trailer. So a little bit of drama,
no doubt.
Dealing with getting stuff fixed.
People who are listening, Kat and her wife Courtney live in their trailer and they travel. How long have you guys been doing this for?
We just left Washington State like the 3rd week of September. So
September, October, so a couple months
in. A couple of months, yeah.
A couple of months. What's the goal for how long you guys intend on doing that?
We don't necessarily have a time frame. It's more of a location deadline. Is we moved away from Washington State to get away from all the gray and the cold and the rain, and we want to live where it is sunny for, you know, like 300 days. That would be awesome. So just trying to find home.
Dustin's in the dark, bro. That's cool. It's just because it's behind you. It's all good. We'll figure it out. Cool, Dustin. This is Kat. Kat, this is Dustin. We're just kind of talking about. We're talking about. Kat left Washington State a couple months ago. You got audio out? Oh, you're muted right now. Kat left Washington State a couple of months ago with her wife in a trailer, and they're just kind of driving around. And what was the destination again?
Well, we're looking at the Southwest, so New Mexico, Arizona. Right now, we're in Southern California. We're really just kind of chasing warm weather at this point. So
cool. What was what was the catalyst to end up like packing up and saying we out to go, like do this?
Well, you know, it's really interesting. On our first date, actually almost 4 years ago, she was talking about a dream that she had. She says, well, you know, in a couple of years, my daughter's going to go off to college, and I've always wanted to travel, and I've always lived in Washington State. I want to go, you know, down to the Southwest. I've always been intrigued with New Mexico. I just want to live someplace warm. And then I said, well, that's funny because I'm from Arizona. And I also miss the warm weather. And then obviously our relationship bloomed, and we decided that when my son went off to college, which he just did this fall, that was going to be our go date. And so that's what happened.
Cool. I dig it.
It's amazing.
Dustin, what's going on? Dustin, how you been, bro?
I've been good, man. I've been really good. Busy bird.
Right on. Where are you at right now?
I am in outside of a wine bar, actually, having going away drinks with a very good friend of mine who is moving back to Ireland, and she's leaving on Thanksgiving. So we are soaking up our last bit of time that we can spend together and having some wine.
Nice.
Which is what y'all are going to get the product of right now.
Mm-hmm. It's all good. It's all good. So last week we tried to get on and we couldn't get the Facebook Live to connect to Zoom. You said some people had some questions about relationships, in particular that they wanted us to talk about. Was it a specific question about that, or was it just like talk about relationships in general?
I think that the request was just to talk about relationships in general and human connection, and kind of just synergize those ideas between the two of us, kind of like we do with all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. So like to explore human connection, for example, our connection, and human connection in general, and then relationships and how fundamentally important they are to us as humans.
Okay. So as far as human connection goes, I'm just going to go.
Please. This is perfect.
So, and again, this is like a reminder of why Dustin and I do this every week. Dustin's one of my best friends. We do not live in the same location. We do not spend enough physical, like within the same 3 feet of each other. We probably see each other once a year. I think the average over the last 3 years has been. But about once a month, we call each other on the phone. And he's just one of these people that I can be really, really open about literally anything, which has always been really cool. And there's always just these cool conversations we had. And just like about the synergizing of a relationship is just like, it's like, I think the most important thing for relationships is to be able to be completely open about whatever it is. Mm-hmm. To be able to share, like, you know, and I'll tell about an experience I had, like going from last night and this morning. My wife and I have a toddler at home and a 7-week-old today. And it's like, if we don't keep honest about like, hey, this is what I got going on tomorrow, this is what I need, we can fall easily into that loop of, hey, I expect you to know everything that I need you to know about me to freaking make all my day successful. And it's just so easy to just skip. It's like, okay, I'm gonna share. I'm just gonna skip sharing this one time and just not worry about it. And then like just the snowball of stuff that can fall apart because you weren't honest about that one thing. So I think that's kind of our practice here. And this is the reason we do these talks live, to be as honest as possible. There's no editing, it starts and stops. It's not polished. We don't have a freaking intro or a website.
Yeah. I'm sitting in front of a wine bar right now. So
yeah, you're sitting in front of a wine bar. And so we decided to bring a third person on here every once in a while to just kind of challenge that dynamic that the two of us have, and to be open with someone. I've never met Kat in real life either. And so it's just like, this is a relationship we have, yet it's cool to get really real about stuff like that. So that's me, like just the ability to share and continue to share no matter what it is. And then when you realize, you're like, oh man, I probably could have shared that, to bring that admission of mistake, for lack of a better word, to the conversation as well.
Let's just call it a missed opportunity instead of a mistake.
For sure. Yeah, missed opportunity.
And to kind of play off of what you were just talking about, I think that you and I, obviously, we have this comfort in our relationship where we can show up honestly. Like I've told you reasons why I couldn't make our call and explored the emotional side of that for me. However, I think that there's a nuance to these types of relationships, like a relationship you have with your wife. And I'm so grateful that you have this kind of relationship. There are nuances to these kind of relationships that that instigate us to show up that way, where we offer that true, authentic self. And there's certain things about those individual relationships that aren't in every relationship. And as a result, we don't show up in every way. What do you think it is about you and your wife and you and me? What do you think, what is it about us where that it's so easy for us to get into that space? Or let's stick with you and your wife. Why is it so easy for you to bring the truth when it's pretty hard for some people?
Because I've had so many missed opportunities in the past and I know what it feels like to continually miss them and to continually know that they're passing by. And I know what a long stream of missed opportunities leads to. And I don't want to do that anymore. You know,
yeah.
I've been divorced twice, and I don't want to get divorced again. I am so, like, the relationship that I have with my wife is so good. And the most massive thing that I've done different in this relationship is by sharing and being honest, even if it's uncomfortable. And it's like, you know, what did I share this morning? I was like, I felt like the baby who's 7 weeks old, and this is like me, like, kind of turning, and it's like, and I'm self-judging myself, like, even sharing this right now, because it's hard. And so it's like, I was like, I feel like the baby gets all the attention, and then me and Charlie are on scraps, and it's been 7 weeks, and it's hard. And then, you know, and then we were like, I'll talk to you later, and then we separate, and then I go do my work for the morning, and I come back and be like, because I can acknowledge as to why it's challenging, and I can lean into that understanding, is even though it doesn't, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with this situation. So I don't want to say that not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's just like, okay, it just gives me an opportunity to be like, I get it. I still want, and to like choose in again. Like, I still want to be in this relationship. I still want to be here in spite of the challenges it is. And the truth is we have a 7-week-old at home, and she is priority. It just is what it is. And so Charlie and I will adjust and deal with that, and we'll get our therapy for that years down the road. And then it's just, you know, so.
Well,
what do you
I
think?
I think you've had your therapy. I think you had your therapy in that
sure.
conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I think that being heard in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that you felt that way is very valid, even though it's not based in reality, because you know that, I mean, the whole show is operating because you're a part of it. So
For sure.
It's undeniable that you're important. We're part of the role.
Mm-hmm.
However, the ego is feeding off this other thing, and simply acknowledging that frees you of it. So all those feelings that you had about feeling left out and feeling like, oh, I'm not the center of this person's world, or even fucking close, because this little tyrant has all the attention.
Oh man.
You just simply acknowledging, though, that frees you of that, and now your wife also is aware of this thing, so she can keep that back here. You know what I'm saying? And she sees you walk around the room, and maybe she wouldn't have been inspired to grab your hand as you walk by, but this time she is, because now she knows that she hasn't been giving you nearly the love that she's capable of, or that she has in the past. And so there's like a freedom for both of you in that space where she can meet you in the middle, and you can stop feeling like you're got all this weight in your backpack.
It is. What do you think, Kat?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a, you know, the human connection piece and the relationships that we develop, all the different types of relationships that we have in our life. We, at the core, I don't care who you are, people want to feel like it's going to be safe to be themselves. And sometimes yourself is not your best self, and you want to find somebody that you can connect with and just be like, I'm kind of a mess today. P.S. This is just kind of how I'm going to show up, and letting them know. And then you're giving them the option, like, okay, I can handle your mess today, or, you know, I'm kind of a mess today too, and I can't handle your mess today. So, like, let's do our own thing and maybe check back in however long you guys agree to. And the beautiful thing about you being able to, you know, tell your wife, like, hey, Charlie and I are getting scraps, like, it's so vulnerable to be able to do that, and just to let her know, like, this is how I feel. Even if, you know, I know that you say all the time you're the smartest person on the planet. So even if the smartest person on the planet has an irrational thought, like, it's totally fine, right? Because we're humans, we're not robots. So so just to be able to say, you know what, like, my crazy monkey mind today feels like we're getting scraps. I know you're busy with an infant that cannot help, you know, themselves. I know that they are fully dependent on you, but this is just kind of how I rolled out of bed today. I would like a little bit more. And then, you know, to piggyback on what Dustin said, now she has that awareness. And so, you know, being able to throw a little more than just scraps your way. I know that that's your perception of it, but, you know, to be able to know that, as opposed to you not saying, and then months go by, or more weeks go by, and you start building up this resentment, and then you blow up, and she's like, where the hell did that come from? Well, 4 weeks ago, I was starting my feast of scraps, and
For
I'm tired
sure.
of scraps. It's like, why don't you say that 4 weeks ago? So it's
Oh man.
so awesome that you shared that.
That's definitely something that we do. We do our best to get it out like in the moment, or at least within the same day. And that's definitely not something that I did in the past.
Yeah.
You know, it was just like freaking eating the self-serving our self-expectation and judgment like for days and days and days and days and days. And then it just, just like you said, it just blows up.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, and you're not giving her the opportunity to learn and grow if she's not made aware of it, right? Like we don't read each other's minds. So if she has no idea, and then you come back 4 weeks later and you're like, well, this has been bugging me for 4 weeks. She's like, you never even gave me a chance to try to make it better, or maybe say, hey, I feel this way too. So, I mean, that's a beautiful thing.
Nice. What else you got today, Dustin?
Let's see.
He's like, I got a little wine.
I'm not
got a little wine in my system.
I'm not quite done with this one yet. I think that,
no, it's cool. Yeah. What else you got? I'm totally down. Go ahead.
Yeah, totally. I think that as anyone who's watching this has probably been in a relationship at one point or another, hopefully a romantic one. Many of people watching probably have no clue how to generate these sort of results in their relationship, where one, it feels comfortable to share that raw authenticity, and two, it's safe to hear it. So I'd like to kind of pull on the knowledge of the group. I really appreciate what Kat was saying about the monkey mind, by the way. You really won me over with that one. I'm curious, how would you recommend someone cultivate this kind of connection in their relationships if they don't have it? So how can their beingness shift from, Ryan, for you specifically, because you really have seen this front and back, how can someone make a change today in their relationship after watching this video, where they can start showing up more authentically and start creating this type of result? Maybe not overnight, but in time. What's an action step for creating this today, in your opinion? And you, Kat, as well. It's open question.
Well, yeah, I thought you were asking Kat specifically. I was going to give her an opportunity to go. Yeah. So.
Oh, sure.
I want to hear from both of you guys, please.
Yeah.
So, it's really from the beginning of any kind of relationship, but especially a romantic one, is starting it out by saying, this is what I'm looking for. I mean, everybody does it. Every single person on the planet, if you see somebody and you're like, I'm attracted to them, they have started to fulfill that master checklist that we all keep in our brains, whether we admit it or not, right? You just like smile, charisma, whatever. And we go through that, but oftentimes we don't share that. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. I'm a relationship coach, so I give my clients these analogies, because that's just how my brain works. So an analogy that I give, I said, it's like going into a hardware store and you want a hamburger. So you're hungry, you're like, oh, I really want this. Like, I'm super hungry, I want this juicy hamburger. And you walk into a hardware store and you're like, hey, where are the hamburgers? And they're like, it's a hardware store. Great, but I'm super hungry and I want a hamburger. And they're like, yeah, hammer, nails, duct tape, plumbing, no hamburger. So I can either stay and suffer in that relationship in that hardware store and not get what I want, or I can back myself out and I can walk down the street and go look for a hamburger store. And we do this all the time in relationships. We enter relationships, we're not clear with what we want out of it, we're not clear with what we have to offer to the other person, and then somehow we just like try to jam this square post into a round hole and wonder why our relationships don't work and they fail and we don't have open communication and all of these things. And there's nothing at all wrong, and actually it makes everything easier if you come into a relationship and you say, this is what I would like to get out of this relationship, and here is what I am and am not willing to do. and then you hear their side of it. And then, you know, if they say, I really would like to have this in a relationship, that's when you can either decide if you're the hardware store or the hamburger store and say, I can give that to you. Or, yeah, I don't know how to give that to you, but I'm willing to learn how to give that to you. Or just, you know, that might be a hard no where you're like, nope, not my thing, or whatever. But, you know, people go in getting their emotions tied up into relationships before they really truly know a person. And communication is the basis of all of that. You know, if you don't tell somebody what you want and what you're willing to give, how are you supposed to create anything? So saying, I really want to be open and authentic, and I may show up on your front doorstep not as my best self, and I want you to be okay with that. And if you are willing to at least try, even if you don't know how to, but if you're willing to be willing, that's cool. But if you're not, thanks for letting me know, but this isn't for me. You know, just having that communication, whatever it is, you know.
So to add on to that, I think I like to call that like the rules conversation. We're starting this relationship. Let's lay out the rules for what we both like to see, and let's agree on these rules before we play this game. Whether that's, you know, whether it's yeah. So whatever the game is, you know, your relationship. That being said, agree to play by those rules as long as you both want to. And as soon as somebody's like, I no longer want to play by these rules, you have to have another rules discussion. You have to have another rules discussion. It's too important, because it's just like, okay, we're playing. I think that's just like a parallel analogy to the hardware store and the hamburger store, which I love, by the way, because now I want a juicy hamburger. It's freaking oh yeah. And so, but it's just like, you know, if you're sitting at the table and you're playing Monopoly and one person thinks you're playing checkers and you're doing this, it's like, you know, somebody's gonna have flipping the table and being like, well, you've been doing this. We're like, wait, we're playing Monopoly. I wanted to stop. I wanted checkers like a year ago. We'd be like, well, thanks for
telling me
something, like, you know. So, but it's like, that's me saying to myself, like, absolutely things I say to myself. It's like, I just made that mistake so many times. It's just like, and so when Dustin answers Dustin's question, and I think Kat already touched on this, it's just, this is what I want, and this is what I would like to see, and this is what I would not like to see. So I think, just to back up before that just a little bit, is really starting to dig into who you really are, and like, who am I? And I think who you are is going to answer a lot of those questions, like what you want in a relationship, what you don't want in a relationship, and the kind of things that you want to give and take, and the things you want to see reciprocation at, and the things you don't. And then it's just, you know, it kind of makes that rules discussion easier. And then when the other person presents their rule, like, oh, well, I'd like to see this rule in the relationship, where it's like, okay, can I be my authentic self if that rule exists? Can I be my authentic self if the rule doesn't exist? And just being able to check that against who you know you are. And I believe we all know who we are. It's just, generally speaking, in our society, we are so good at bending for somebody else. And so we're bending and contorting all these different weird ways to make ourselves fit into these hardware store puzzles that just don't work. And it's just, you know, so step one, stop doing that. Just have an honest conversation with yourself. Who am I? What do I want? Where do I want to go? Whatever, you know, analogical, I don't know what word I'm using, analogies you want to use to get there. So it's, yeah. Excellent question, Dust. You're the man. What about you, Dustin?
I think that was beautifully answered, by the way. Both of you guys, unique perspectives. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. It was great. I think for me, the way that I would start creating that now, the way that I have actually. So I've been in many transitions in my relationship, and just showing up that raw, authentic self, and then also knowing and believing that the person can handle me, and that this person doesn't need to be protected from my feelings. And if I think that it might hurt their feelings, or if I think that they might take it too harshly, then it's all the more reason to give it to them, because I see something that is a possibility for them to work on. And if I prevent it from coming forth, I'm going to carry it on me for a really long time. So for an action step that I would give someone to create this in their relationship today, I would say, hold your partner capable, of hearing your truth and hearing your authenticity. And if they really fucking love you and what you're asking for is not super fucking outrageous, they're probably going to give it to you. And if they're not going to give it to you, they're going to most likely meet you in the middle. And if they're not willing to do that, then you probably need to find a different partner because your middle's too far apart. And, yeah, that was good. That was nice.
Yeah.
I like it.
And with the, I love what you just said, Dustin, is hold your partner capable. And we, you know, going back to that monkey mind meaning making machine, I call it my upstairs neighbors and my downstairs neighbors. My upstairs neighbors, they get really loud. You know, they stomp on the floor, they slam a bunch of drawers, and like the dogs are running around, and the babies are crying, and sometimes you just want to, your downstairs neighbors, your heart always knows the right answer. And sometimes your heart, your downstairs neighbor just wants to pound on that damn ceiling, go, just shut the hell up, you know? I'm a recovering overthinker, and there are times when I
beautiful.
still lapse back into that. But, you know, like Ryan was saying, it's like when you really do the work and you get to know yourself, the answers become very simple. You know, there's a lot of things. I mean, there's a lot of just trivial things that we know right off the bat. I mean, I could do like a speed quiz and I could answer all these questions correct because I know myself, you know, what's your favorite color, what's your favorite food, you know, what kind of music do you, I mean, just like simple stuff. But we can all get to the point where we know ourselves so well that you can rattle off big existential deep knowing questions in the same way. And when you can get to that place where you're like, oh yeah, I'm cool with that, or if you're a neutral, like, it's not my thing, I can take it or leave it, but I'm willing to try it, that's great. And then that is where you really get clarity, so that when you start having these deep conversations in any kind of relationship, you're not hemming and hawing and then like Ryan was, you know, improv dancing over there showing how we contort and that we bend ourselves. And we bend ourselves, and while we're bending, we're like, this does not feel good, and I'm pretty sure this is not going to last very long, but we do it anyway. And then shockingly, we're like, why did that relationship fail? Because you weren't yourself, and you were trying to be somebody else, and nobody wants to date a fake person. You know, and giving people the opportunity to grow and also giving yourself the freedom to express, I mean, that's beautiful. And it's going to work out however it works out, you know, like you were saying, Dustin, if your middles are too far apart and that doesn't work, wouldn't you rather know now? You know, people always say, oh, I don't want to have a hard conversation. Okay, you want to like be married to this person for 30 years and then
you want to use a lawyer to have the hard conversation?
Yeah, like, let's have a hard relationship instead.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you want to have a hard relationship or a hard conversation?
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
That should be on your business card.
Do you want to have a hard? Yeah, it's a freaking good.
Well, my motto is it doesn't have to be that hard. That's my relationship.
It doesn't have to be that hard.
No. It doesn't have to be that hard. You know, and something that Ryan was saying about creating rules that I love, and it didn't ping in my head, but I just made a comment on the Facebook feed, is my wife and I early on in our relationship, we actually wrote down, like, we took out a book, it's still our book, and we took out a book and we said, when we come to a place of conflict, how are we going to fight fairly, so to speak? And we created, you know, this is okay or this is not okay. And we started doing that. And we set, you know, goals for ourselves within the relationship monthly. And we would do that. And early on, we developed this motto saying, we make the rules and we're willing to try. And that released us from so much binding of, like, you know, what our friends thought we should do and what our family thought we should do and what society says we should do. And it's like, there are two people in this relationship. So there are two people on the CEO's board that make all the decisions. We have no shareholders, you know, nobody else gets to jump into our conversation. It's our relationship is whatever we want it to look like. And that took off so much pressure, you know, and when people ask questions, it's usually never about you. It's usually about themselves, putting themselves in your situation, and then their fear comes up, and then that's how they spit questions out at you. What about this? What about that? It's like, why would you even ask me that? I never even mentioned that fear. So that's not my fear. That's your fear. You know, it's just very interesting.
Are you non-monogamous by chance?
Am I what?
Non-monogamous?
No, I'm married. I'm
You're, I knew you were
yeah.
married. I just wasn't sure if you guys were monogamous or not.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh,
You,
yes, we are.
right
Yeah.
on. You were just you were painting a very familiar picture with some of the words that you were choosing to describe the way that people have cross-examined you. So I was curious if that was something that you were exploring
Oh, I see.
on this journey. Because I am ethically non-monogamous, and I've had a lot of people's insecurities projected on me over the last 5 years in conversations where I'm being authentic and vulnerable, and someone's just like, I'm going to throw up all over you, tell you everything that I'm afraid of. Go, really?
Yeah, and it's okay if they say it from the point of like, these are my fears. These are things that but people don't usually have that language, and so they just bombard you instead of saying, boy, if I was in that situation, all of these things would make me nervous. They skip that whole step, and then they just start like bombarding you with like, well, what about this? And how come that? And what about this? And it's like, where is this coming from?
It's
And
like
then
it feels like a fire hose.
yes, like you're drinking from a fire hose, and you're like, why? Stop. Like, why are you throwing all this on me? Until you figure out it's not about you. You have introduced a concept that they're like, oh, that's scary to me, and then yeah, they start spewing all their fears. So yeah.
I think that is just about the most valuable information for anybody wearing any label, considering themselves part of whatever the thing. It's just like our experience here in this reality is it's 100% individualistic, and nobody's experience is yours. Yet I think in our culture, people want it to be so bad because everybody's in this. We're talking about the monkey brain, like the monkey mind. It's like it wants to be right so bad. It wants to be able to hand you the answer. It wants to be able to fix stuff because of that insecurity. And so it's just practicing letting that go and reminding yourself that, hey, it's not my monkey, it's not my circus. And to also be able to practice a way to gently let other people know that, hey, I got this. Like, I appreciate your perspective, yet, and the thing, it's been a practice of mine to lovingly, and this is something I'm still figuring out. Like when I notice people are like Dustin's saying, like just throwing up their stuff all over me, to practice a way to let them know that that's how I'm receiving them. Like, this just sounds like it's your stuff. And that can be a challenging thing because they're in their fear and they're like, and they're just attempting to deal with their fear.
Yeah, they're already building walls.
They're already building it. And so to attempt a way to like put your hand softly on the top brick and just be like, nope, no more, and to bring it down, which is really easier said than done. And sometimes a lot of ways, if you notice that that's happening, to just kind of almost let it happen per se, if you have the energy or love or time to give it in that moment. And then in the times you don't, just be like, hey, I just don't have the energy for this, and let's come back to this later. And then when we both do the thing, and then take turns to share that context of like, hey, this is what I felt was happening. Is that true? And just to like give people the opportunity to clarify and verify
and own their shit
and own their stuff too, and then that's like, because those conversations like an opportunity to discuss rules like right away. Like, it's like, hey, well, and so McCarran, my wife, and I, we have a safe word. It's like, so anytime we're like 2 or 3 out of 10, like in a discussion, if we're heated any higher than that, we're like, nope, safe word. Like, nope, let's separate, and we'll come back to this when we're both like chill. And like the neighbors up here had loved that, by the way, have quieted down a little bit. And so, yeah, and then coming back to it and just being like, okay, and because that was exactly what happened this morning. I had my outburst, and then, I got in the car and went and did my work for the morning. And then like, I was like I was actually meeting with an LS brother of mine and Dustin's. And like during the conversation, it's like, oh man, could have handled this better. It's just like, but there's the opportunity to learn from it. And it's just, it happens for a reason. And we just we'll continue to do the lesson as many times as we need to.
Yes.
So
life is very patient that way.
Well,
it's like, oh, silly human, you didn't get it. Here's another chance.
There's another chance too.
Just another chance.
It takes people 30 years sitting on a mountain to understand Zen philosophy, man. So it makes sense that we're going to need multiple opportunities to learn to not judge our experience, and then learn to learn from our experiences. The less we judge, the more we learn. And,
yes.
It makes sense that it takes a while to get that down, because it's really hard, man. It's really hard to let go of our monkey mind and our what we think should be and our gotta mentality, and kind of just interpret things as they are without making a judgment. And when we get there, it's so profound, the kind of gold we can find there.
So Holly asked a question. I want to get to this before we wrap this up. She said, how does anyone know how to help create the needed change for the betterment of all if they aren't even aware? And so my answer to this is that the world will eventually let you know. And so to kind of, for me, for a long time in my relationships, as I look behind me at the battlefield that was my dating life and my love life, you know, and kind of looking at what it was behind, for a long time, I was like, oh, all these women are the same. All the same problems always come up. This is just women's fault. And then one day, I don't remember what it was specifically, but it's like, I think it was just 4 years ago, I started doing personal development, kind of got into it. And somebody's like, well, what's the common denominator? And I was like, man, this isn't a math problem. And then I was like, oh, I see what you're talking about. And I was like, oh man. And then just to kind of, and it's again, you're giving yourself that same love, that same opportunity, because it's really hard to look at yourself sometimes. It's really hard to be like, for 39 years of my entire life, I'm the one who's responsible for every single bit of it. Every single thing that I've every single drop of everything that I've ever adopted, every label that I said my mom was labeled me as, my dad or my friends or the Navy or whatever it was for me, like they didn't give those labels to me. And even if somebody called it to me, I was one that accepted it true or false.
Yep.
And so it's just like realizing that is a practice. And sometimes you need to have enough data in your life to, when you do kind of notice it, that you can look back and kind of verify for yourself. So it was like, and then, so that's like kind of, you're waiting for attrition to kind of take its place and finally knock you down. And then as you're getting back up, you can begin to intentionally look at it and be like, okay, I want to take responsibility for this. I want to take responsibility for that. That I don't believe is me and I don't want to take responsibility for, but I can take responsibility for what I learned from that situation. So in turn, you are kind of taking responsibility for it. And then what I'm saying is like, so it's like you have a piece of steel and it's laying on an anvil and you're just beating it. Attrition is somebody else hammering it, or the universe or the world or God or whoever it is hammering the anvil. And then intention is just lovingly taking the hammer away and then strengthening it your own way intentionally, like putting yourself in the fire in your own way. Because I think getting into the fire is the best way we learn. And so I know Holly, to kind of jump on, I know you and Joel are doing this month-long, like I don't remember what it's called, but they're like doing 0 substances and 0 distraction thing, like the whole month. I don't remember what it's called, but it was like a sober October, but they got it to us, so they're doing it for November. Sober November, more or less. And so, but I know for them, just following their journey, they've been kind of noticing a whole bunch of stuff about yourself. And it's like, now that you have this experience and now you're like noticing all these things, now intentionally take this data and go use that to find more data and more and more and more, to continue to collect and to continue to build, you know. And this is just like, I think like sharing in a way it's a way of self-expression and self-discovery all at the same time. So just be with that, learn from that, and impulse control experiment. Thank you, Joel. And it's just, you know, keep practicing, practice, look for it, ask. You're in a unique situation, not necessarily unique, but you and Joel are doing this experiment together. So then you can both like, hey, Holly, what do you notice? Joel asking the question, Holly asking Joel, what do you notice? This is what I noticed. And then take that as a feedback to then be like, okay, I'm going to take this feedback. I know this is about them, but I'm going to look at it and see what truth it does hold. And then just go from there. You know, be willing to share that with each other and be willing to use your voice, because, you know, it's a practice of that, like using your voice is just as valuable. And yeah, it's a practice in that self-discovery as well.
I love what you said about really looking back. I call life experiences data collection, because then it makes me think of life as like one big long string of experiments, which, you know, that's to me what an experience is. It's an experiment. You don't know what's going to happen, but you're going to like, okay, I'm going to try this thing. And responsibility, Jack Canfield wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul, and he later wrote The Success Principles. And the number one principle in there is you are responsible for every single thing that happens in your life, period. Like, that is the first rule. That is what you will learn. And the beautiful thing is when you kind of get over like the initial fear, like, wait, what? I'm responsible for everything? So this bad relationship, or me not getting this job, or me whatever. But when you break down the word responsibility, it is respond ability. It is your ability to respond. And react is you just instinctively acting the same way that you did before in a similar situation. That's why when we react to things, unless you like you're playing a sport or you're doing a martial art where you just need to have that, like, I'm just going to react without thinking. I mean, those are the two biggest, that's the biggest thing that separates react and respond. Is react is just no thinking, you just do it. Yeah. Respond means I need to pull back. I need to check in with myself. I need to check in with who I'm talking to. Where are they at? You know, and then saying, what is the best thing that I can say or do right now to serve me and serve them? And, you know, that knowing that you are responsible, once you kind of get over that, like, oh, all these things happen to me and I was responsible for it. To me, responsibility means I have choices. If I'm responsible for everything in my life, that means I'm the powerful one. I'm the one that can say what I do or do not want, how I do or do not want to behave. And that's a wonderful place to be. You know, when we get stuck in this cycle of things happen to me, it's just like you're just kind of sitting here and like life is happening to you, you know, but life doesn't happen to you. Life always happens for you. And when we shift our mind to look at it from that perspective, it's like, okay, today I woke up, not a great day. What am I supposed to learn from this not a great day experience? You know, what pieces of myself am I here to strengthen right now? What's my growing opportunity? You know, like Dustin was saying earlier, it's like, it's not a mistake, it's just a missed opportunity. You know, you can tie it back in and you can say, oh, I could have done that better. You know, debrief with yourself. I was a cop for 13 years. We used to debrief calls all the time. So it's like debrief with yourself and go, okay, well, what could I have done better? You know, and learn it. You're collecting that data. Don't just let it sit there. It's useful shit. Use it, you know? So
Crystal, she mentioned about the feedback. She says, I've also learned that feedback doesn't need to always require action. Just because someone feels X and tells me doesn't mean it requires a change or action from me. Feedback is a gift. You choose what to do with it. I think this is so valuable because, and in a way to add to that, Crystal, I think every single moment, everything around us is constant feedback all the time. And yeah, pick the stuff that serves you and use it and learn from it. And the stuff that doesn't, be like, thanks for sharing and move on. And so it's just, you know, I think that's really powerful. Thank you, Crystal, for sharing that. And
I think,
go ahead,
I think, and to answer the kind of bring it back into the question, to kind of summarize what both of you said, and well answered, by the way. Ryan, the journey to happiness is a war of attrition, and you gotta, the journey to being woke, right? We all like to throw this word woke around. It's a battle of attrition that you fight every day if you want to be woke. And Kat, I think a way to kind of bundle up all of what you said into a single sentence is everything is a resource, and that things aren't happening to us, they're happening for us. I think you said that exactly, and that's fucking an amazing way to look at information. It's not happening to me, it's happening for me, and so if it's happening for me, it's a resource. So how can I use this thing as a resource? And that's a very empowering place versus being a victim where it's like, this is all happening to me without anything on me from it. So that was nice.
Awesome.
Cool. Right on. I think we're going to wrap this up here. I got another call in about 15 minutes, so I need to go clear and get ready for that. Kat, thank you so much for being here tonight. This was so much fun. This was awesome. And we would love to have you back sometime in the future. And
love it.
Dustin, a couple of glasses of wine from now on. I like you more. I'm just messing with you, bro. It's cool. Thanks for making space for both of your events tonight. I think that's really smart. And the feedback from people who watched tonight was amazing. Thank you for getting involved with this. Again, we do this every Monday night at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then thanks, Crystal. Thanks, Joel. Thanks, everybody that was here. Kat, any last keywords or tricky phrases before we cut out?
I love shooting the shit with you too. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, for sure. We will definitely have you back.
Thank you.
For sure. Dustin, anything from you?
No, man, I think that was beautiful. I really had fun. I'm glad that I made this work tonight because I did have a lot of fun on this one.
Awesome. Cool. I'll talk to y'all soon. All right. Mahalo.
Likewise. Love you guys.
Later.